Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So, this episode I'm calling USIsrael Alliance, based on commitment to global arms and policing industry, with Palestinians as live targets. So, I'm filling in an idea, or I proposed in a previous episode that the colonial project of Israel and the commitment of Western Europe and the United States to Israel is primarily one of a being a gendarme, in other words, so an active military presence that is allied with Western Europe and the United States in the Middle East, and also that they have some quote unquote European, or they have a European connection and a sense of Israel styles itself as part of Europe in some ways, and so at least the Ashkenazi part of it and the Israeli Jewish part of it, and so but that I since then I've thought about it and I've read some, and I think that is supplemented by, I mean, there are a number of different reasons why the United States and why Joe Biden is so uncritical of Israel and so also so committed to spending more and more aid to Israel, and obviously our domestic military-industrial complex here in the United States is extremely strong, and a large portion of the politicians in Washington are beholden to it through campaign donations, among other things, and so this alliance, so the U.S. has its own side in terms of basically the money that's going to Israel some of it comes back to the United States in the form of orders for various weaponry. But Israel itself has a very substantial arms industry. It's the 10th largest arms exporter in the world. It's a small country, so that is a very important sector in the Israeli economy. And then also there's policing and surveillance companies that are based in Israel, and partly shaped out of its apartheid system, where it monitors, it imprisons and monitors basically all Palestinians also living in Israel, but also living in obviously West Bank and Gaza. So anyway, this alliance then is based on a commitment to the arms industry, and also a commitment to policing and policing technology that is troubling on a number of levels. So the incompatibility of arms, hyper arms sales, hyper armaments, or a focus on the arms sector in an economy, and then also the surveillance sector that is undermines democracy in ways that were unforeseen when in the beginning of the military-industrial complex, basically during the Roosevelt administration in the United States, and also in the founding of Israel. I mean, there was similarly. I mean, the United States has had along in its use of muskets, among other things, and other technologies of the 18th, 17th, and 18th centuries, and 19th centuries, gave the white settlers or European settlers in the United States the advantage over the indigenous people of North America, but also similarly in Israel in its founding. I mean, you had various terrorists and other groups that were, Israeli or, at that time Jewish settlers, Jewish Palestinian groups that also, used to their advantage their relationship with the technologically and militarily superior Europe or Britain and then the United States. So anyway, I'm just adding here that this is a obvious Israeli democracy is not helped by this over militarization of their society, and then also it's not only a commitment to the industry. Israel has the advantage, and this is where also the racism of many Israelis toward Palestinians and Arabs more generally plays a role in treating Palestinians as test subjects. Basically, they are the test bed for both surveillance and also military various weapons, and so there's a way in which the status quo in Israel, and also pushing harder and on the Israeli side, in other words, or supporting uncritically and unconditionally Israel's arms buildup, is this commitment to a vision of the world where either one country or a few countries control the rest of the world through their arms. So it increases the imperialist, either mini imperialisms. For instance, Azerbaijan, which also got weapons from Israel, in its ethnic cleansing of Armenians, or I hate the word ethnic cleansing, but land grab and genocidal push against Armenians in Artsakh. So you have little regional powers also. So you have basically a system where you have the big players in the big military powers, U.S., China, Russia, and then you have smaller powers that gain their power from an alliance with one or the other of those states. So anyway, so this the hyper or the exaggeration of the system creates then a stratification in the world system more than as would exist without those weapons and without the sophistication of the weapons, but then also the surveillance and internal policing systems that are being developed also stratify and create unreasonable levels of power for either mostly political leaders or bureaucrats, but can also be private corporations that are the main suppliers, and also the you could say the manipulators or the prime corruptors of the politics of any given country, and the beneficiaries, usually the prime beneficiaries of government policy in a neoliberal / post-neoliberal, maybe even neo-fascist system, where you have the value of being a citizen, or of being either individual citizen, family, whatever, that's no longer as important as being close to the center of power, and using that center of power because there's democracy is eviscerated, and so you have mostly powerful players that are being part of the gang of either the state, the military and state that that's protecting them, protecting property. There's an emphasis on existing hierarchies of property ownership in this system of policing and surveillance. So anyway, so there's a bunch of synergies there that makes, I think, so right now the movement against the genocide in Gaza is trying to get Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and others to pressure Israel not to commit a genocide against the Palestinians. And while there is the cover story of supposedly fighting anti-Semitism, or protecting Israelis. The Israelis were attacked by Hamas in a gruesome manner, many of them in a gruesome manner, civilians. So there is this shock, so to speak. The shock doctrine is being used to further, I think, and to accelerate this exaggerated distinction between regional powers and between the central powers in the world, the dominant imperialists in the world, but then also mostly the United States, and also feeding this global arms industry that is has an almost undisputed power in Washington, D.C. But anyway, we see the damage to that. If we look closely at the Palestinians and we get information about what's happening to them, we see the gruesome effects of this on people, and that's why, in a way, it's samizdat. It's which is a term from the old Soviet Union, meaning sort of illegal or underground press, underground reporting that is handed around in the old days by, leaflets and so forth and so on, rather than being pressed in books or as a newspaper. Anyway, so mimeographed even, so using old technology, but the lower end of old technology. So, but anyway, but the reason why there's this, beside racism, and the racism is functional in terms of shutting down people's thinking about what are the damages of this global arms industry, this global surveillance industry. How is this oppressing you, or how could it oppress you? So they're trying to cut the empathy relationship with the Palestinians, with people on the other side of this. And so the Palestinians, though, are not alone. There's so many parts of the world where, for instance, in a lot of parts of Africa, in the Congo, I'll do another video about that, where I recently, I want to share information about genocide in the Congo. That has to do with extractive industries. So in Israel, there isn't specifically an extractive industry that is particularly valuable, as typical colonies are, but they are this sort of mini colonial power there, where again they function as this test bed for crowd control, for military weapons, for policing weapons, and the Palestinians function as these targets for that. And so that I am adding, beside the moral failing of racism and of lack of empathy, or there are functions to the moral failing that is exhibited by the Israeli government, by many supporters of the Israeli government currently, by the Israel lobby around the world, the people who are swept up in Zionism around the world, and then also both Jewish and non-Jewish, and other people. I guess that includes people who are swept up. In other words, people who are more identify with that, organizations that promote it, and so forth and so on. So all of those things, there are moral failings associated with that, and it's racism and imperialism and a colonial situation there in way past the era of colonies. But anyway, but this function of that state and the function of giving money to it is alive for the powers in governments around the world. So governments that are interested in controlling their populations, that are not interested in having a democratic dialogue with their people in their countries, they have a vision of control from the top, and so forth and so on. So Israel becomes your sort of their helper, okay, in this, and the Israelis are being sacrificed for that. So the Israelis shouldn't be devoting themselves to this project because it makes their life miserable. Okay, it makes their lives, except for some moments where there's sort of this barrier where they can erect this barrier of empathy and this empathy stopping barrier between them and their neighbors, and just to sort of shut that off. So, and they can create moments where they, can have fun and so forth and so on. But in the long run, they're not, as you see, it re-evokes and intensifies the horrors of past forms of persecution, or it certainly revives those, and also there's a government apparatus that stirs those things for its own uses in Israel and also in the United States. But anyway, so me just sort of to step away from the sort of macro analysis, I don't want my Jewish identity and history of Judaism, of Jews, to including our history of persecution, to be used to shield this industry, to be the I don't want that, and no Jew should want that, and so the ideological apparatus of cutting off one's understanding that you could be on the other side of those weapons or that surveillance, that cutting that off is there's massive efforts to do that. There is massive censorship going on to try to shut that down. So anyway, so I just wanted to share both this sort of, ideological or not, social analysis, social economic analysis, of the specific role of Israel. It's not just any settler colony. It has this industry that's very important in it. It's not the only, there are other countries that have arms industries, but they also have this live test bed, so to speak, where they have almost they have more carte blanche. They're able to be more brutal, more than, though, I mean, there have been in France and in other countries and in Germany too, you see brutality. In the United States, definitely, you see brutality directed within the population. But the Israelis have even more leeway in that they can just bomb, and they can go against their own instructions to the Palestinians, where that would lead to the fall of some of these governments if let's say if it were it's they have more carte blanche than some of the other so internal suppression and police actions that happen in other countries. Anyway, so and that's why that's their special. So the specialness that is savored by many people in the Jewish community and in Zion, the specialness of our, that we're so we're such an, or we, in associating with Israel, so we have such an important status and so forth and so on, and we're, and we're unique and blah blah. Anyway, this element is something that where that's being used and being dragged in the dirt, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of moral rectitude and also practical survival too for the long term. It's both things. It's not just trying to be the best person you can be. It's also just not practical. Anyway, so I hope this episode, inspired some thinking or some shared some thoughts that you found interesting. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like the video if you enjoyed it or got something out of it. Please subscribe to Politics 2100, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.